as someone once told me, don't punish the punctual, right? So if you're on time for the session, we appreciate it. And thank you so much for taking the time. So as I said, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I think that covers all of our bases in terms of the where in the world people are. I realize we've got West Coast California, very bright and early this morning. It's not quite as early East Coast, and all the way out to Moscow and Dublin and other places. So nice representation. I don't know if anyone from our Asia colleagues will be able to join, given it is quite late there, but good afternoon, good morning, and good evening to everyone. Thank you so much for joining the inaugural or the first ever UNICON Shift event. This is a new type of event that UNICON is launching, and it's not intended to be a webinar. It's going to be more interactive, it's going to be longer, it's going to have more breakouts and moving pieces. But it also is not a conference that some of you either virtual or in person. So we hope that this new franchise of event gives all of us an interesting way to engage with one another on a global basis. And so really excited to, on behalf of UNICON, to be sort of participating with my partner in crime, or at least my partner there, Shalini Bhatia from Stanford. I'm Devin Bigoness from Cornell University. I'm the Director of Custom Live Corporate Programs within the integrated area of Cornell University, Cornell External Education, and have the privilege of sitting also with Shalini on the UNICON board. And I see some other board members, Eric and Bill and Shire as well, and some others who sit on the board. Thank you for joining. I am based in very fall-like Ithaca, New York, though my virtual background is here at Roosevelt Island and at Cornell's University's Roosevelt Island, New York City campus. And thrilled to be part of this. Shalini, also maybe give you a chance to introduce yourself, and then we can get started.
Sure. My name is Shalini Bhatia. I have the privilege of working with Devin. I am the co-conference chair. And as he mentioned, this is our first UNICON Shift. As times have changed during the pandemic, we felt that it was important to continue providing more resources to our members. And what a perfect way to get us together in this network and information way. Really excited to see so many of you here today. At the end of the day, we hope you get a lot out of it, and we really want you to participate. So there's going to be time at the end and during the small breakout rooms and even during the panel sessions to ask questions, to engage with each other. And so we hope you have the opportunity to really get to know each other better, as we hope to do this multiple times a year. Thank you, Devin.
Great. Thanks, Shalini. Appreciate you waking up early, as many of you on the West Coast are doing here this morning. So I've had the privilege of working in the executive education and university-based executive education for about 15 years now. I started my career as a program manager at Duke Corporate Education, and I see Alex, I think representing the darker blue down there from Duke University, but started my career with Duke Corporate Education in Durham and London and New York. Before coming to Cornell University 8 years ago to work in the Johnson School, and now obviously at the integrated area, and I'm privileged that I was able to convince Grace Hemingway to join me here as part of Cornell University on the panel, and so thanks for doing that. And so this is a meaningful panel for so many reasons, in addition to how radical executive education has shifted over the last 18 months. I think, and all of you, more than likely, in the program operations, program manager, the whole variety or the suite of roles that you occupy have been at the front lines of that, right? Seeing it change from what it used to be to what it is now and wherever it's going. And obviously all of that is up for discussion. And so what we really wanted to do today in this first ever UNICON Shift event is spend some time talking from the people who've lived that and live it every day, what that has looked like, what that looks like today versus maybe what it looked like in March of 2020 or before the COVID-19 pandemic changed all of our businesses very radically. And so what we've tried to do is pull together a panel of those of you who were foolish enough to accept. I mean, we're willing to participate in the panelists, but then we're going to do some small group breakouts to give you guys a chance to get to know each other, to network more. And then we're going to spend some time first on custom programs, then on the open program side of things, and then again have a similar small group breakout. And for those of you wondering, online has cut across both of those channels, right? If you think of how UNICON has traditionally represented data, right? All of our shops have either been custom or open, with online being a critical part of both, right? So, and obviously over the last 18 months, many of us have morphed that line between custom, open, with online being sort of the connector. And so we're going to talk a lot about custom, both online, hybrid, in person. We're going to talk about open in the same way, and then obviously see where the conversation goes. But it's really what we're trying to do. And as a board, and as many of us thought about, how do we continue the wonderful sort of the magic recipe that UNICON is, right? And for many of you have been to either face-to-face conferences or you've been to virtual conferences. Part of the power of UNICON is the ability to network. I hope I speak for many of us. When I went to my first UNICON, all of us had the realization of, wow, you have that same problem. I have that same problem. I have challenges working with faculty or working with clients or engaging with our participants in a meaningful way. And all of us, because of our membership at UNICON, face those challenges every day, right? That's what we do, right? And we are a kindred spirit of collaborators, but also competitors, of course. But also we live many of the same worlds. And I think I hope I speak for many of you, where that's part of the power of UNICON, is we operate in these wonderful areas of the university or colleges or entities that every day try to work with clients, whether they're individuals or organizations, and deliver education value. I think that's many of our beliefs here within executive education, is that's why we do what we do. And over the last 18 months, we have all been put in a massive snow globe and shaken very hard, right? And so that shift in how we do our business has changed radically. And so I hope we're going to have some very candid conversations around that. I'm going to share my screen to put up some visuals to go along, and then that'll help guide us to what we're going to do. So I will share my screen here now. And obviously all of us on Zoom have had to be able to do this. So, and of course now my screen is not sharing, so I'm going to do that. All right, there we go. So what we're going to do is let me just present that. Okay, hopefully all of you can see that. So the agenda for our time together is, we're in the introduction and welcome stage, and then we're going to pivot very quickly, so that you're not listening to me for too much longer, to the custom program panel. And that's really where we're going to hopefully have some very interactive dialogues. We hope we have a nice representation of program managers, program coordinators, program directors, operations, and have a very candid conversation around that. And then we're going to break you up to have some time in small groups, because we know that that's been one of the critical parts of virtual engagement, as well as pre-pandemic in-person programs, is the opportunity to share in very small group, these coffee breaks or these sort of various sessions that are, hopefully you can do that virtually. Then we're going to take a bit of a break. You can grab coffee and either get caffeinated, or as Moscow and Dublin pivot to the afternoon, they may go something stronger than that. We'll see. And then we'll pivot to an open program panel and have many of the same discussions, but in that context. And Shalini is going to lead the open program panel. And then we're going to give you we're going to mix you up again and give you an opportunity to have another small group discussion. And then we're going to end with sort of end Q&A, next steps as we take this forward. As we said, hopefully this is part of the UNICON sort of menu. We have conferences, as many of you know, we have primarily 3 conferences a year. The Team Development Conference, which is the biggest of the 3, the Directors Forum, and then the annual workshop, where we take a specific topic and dive into it. I have to give an enormous shout out to Taryn, who is with UNICON as the kind of program operations director or program manager. She has done a fantastic job of growing another franchise of UNICON, the coffee talks, right? The coffee hours, right? Those have, I think, exploded over the last few years. And so an enormous thanks to Taryn and those associated with that, Dan as well, for helping kind of launch that franchise. And I think many of us also are part of those coffee hours, where on a monthly or bi-monthly or however the cadence is, that's been a great source of information and inspiration for many of us. So hopefully this new franchise of UNICON Shift sort of grows that menu of ways that UNICON continues to deliver value to you, in addition to the research that UNICON does, the the many industry functions that UNICON plays in helping us create value for you as members. So, and obviously Bill Shire, I see here this morning as our executive director. So thanks for joining, Bill, as well. So with that to do, obviously, having talked about the value that UNICON brings to the industry, there are things we can talk about, and hopefully we will talk about many of those here today. But there's things that we really can't talk about, right? And part of that is the antitrust competition statement that we always lead every conference with. And basically what this means is that while we can talk about best practices and we can share our experiences and lessons learned, there are certain things, from whether it's price fixing, monopoly conversations, that we can't talk about, right? And so we have to share this antitrust statement at the beginning of all of our dialogues, just to inform, not to scare you, obviously, but it's both based to sort of help inform our antitrust and compliance. So if there's any questions on that, we can certainly talk more about that, but I don't think we need to spend any more time on that. Dan, I think I've fulfilled our obligation to share this, and now we can move on with the best practice sharing for the group. So wanted to talk just for a minute about what we're hoping our expectations are. And the picture on the right is one of the last times we were all together in person. This picture was taken at the Santa Clara Team Development Conference in December of 2019. And I don't know, I can't remember if any of you were there as part of that, but that was the last time that we were physically together as part of a UNICON conference. And so what you see there is hopefully what we want to encourage virtually, right? The sharing of ideas, the sharing of experiences. And all of us, and I think in having had the chance to connect with Grace recently, I think we've delivered something like 600 virtual sessions in the last year, 18 months, right? So I think many of you would probably be similar numbers or maybe even more. But it would be, we know that there are some best practices in getting people to be active and engaged. And so we encourage you to have your video on, to be active and contributing conversations, and sort of to make this a very engaging experience so that the time flies by and it's, you're while all of us probably have the temptation to multitask our emails or our Slacks or whatever is blowing up, but really encourage you to be active as if we were at a conference table in lovely Southern California and Santa Clara there as well. So having an open dialogue, sharing ideas, and being as transparent as you possibly can, because obviously you want to learn, but we all want to learn from you. We hope that we'll give you a few chances to network and to engage with one another, to make some new LinkedIn connections, to make some new connections that you want to follow up with. That's why we're really going to try to mix and match you into different opportunities there, sharing best practices. And then as Shalini said, we really want to use this as a first UNICON Shift event. We're hoping to have a few of these a year. So your feedback after the fact will be vitally important to making sure that we're offering this in the right way. This is a version 1.0 as people in the tech space. This is our minimum viable product. And feel like I'm geeking out a little bit on entrepreneurship there, but this is our minimum viable product to get something in front of you. Hopefully it's of value, and we also want to improve as we think about version 2.0. And hopefully all of that makes sense from a best practice. Shalini, anything you want to add to that in terms of from your experiences?
It's been trying times, I would say, in the last 18 months. So we're really excited to get us all together to share and learn and figure out what the new horizon looks like as well. So what can we take to the future? So I look forward to the discussion that we're about to have, and let's kick it off, Devin, with our panel.
Sounds great. All right. So I am thrilled to be joined by this very distinguished panel of people who I guess were very open to doing this, and we greatly appreciate that. This would have been a lot less interesting a panel, certainly if I was just the only one there or Shalini's there, and I'm not sure how we convince these people, other than the fact that I work regularly with Grace, and I guess just kept pestering her to do it, and maybe Shalini might have done the same thing to Michelle. Within the Stanford space, but hopefully we've got a nice representation of people who have worked in executive education, particularly in the custom program space for a while, and can offer some really great experiences over what their career arcs have been, and particularly what has shifted radically within the last 18 months. And so what I'd like to do is we'll start the panel here by going around the proverbial room and giving each person a chance to introduce themselves, talk about their role, where they sit, where they're based. And what I'd like each person to do is to think about, after you introduce yourself, let's start the conversation with a very broad question. What is the biggest thing that has changed for you and your role and the program operations area since March of 2020? And I realize that's a very broad question, but let's just start the dialogue with what is the biggest thing that has shifted from there? And I probably would say I wouldn't do this to introduce her, let herself introduce her first, but maybe I'll turn to my colleague and my longtime friend, Grace Hemingway, to get things started. So Grace, if you want to kick us off and introduce yourself.
Thank you, Devin. Nice to meet everyone here. As Devin mentioned, I am his colleague and friend. I'm here in Cornell University in the Ithaca, New York area. I've been part of Exec Ed for 7 years now, working predominantly in the custom program design realm, supporting a multitude of clients and building a portfolio over the case of that 7 years. I've seen a massive shift since March of 2020 due obviously to COVID. Mainly, we shifted from the in-person aspect of design programs to a virtual setting. It's definitely, I did end up counting them. I have supported 313 virtual sessions since March of 2020. I wanted to be able to provide that information, that data to you. I did, however, got the privilege of being in person in Boston and Chicago the last 2 weeks. So we are starting to go back in person, which is very exciting. I predominantly work with business development partners such as Devin and some other partners. I work very closely with our vendors as well as the operations, logistics, and cross-functionally within other departments across Cornell University. So it's very nice to meet everyone, and I really look forward to adding as much value as I can on the panel and adding some more discussions.
Great, thanks so much, Grace. So now we go from Ithaca, New York to, depending on where in Brazil, Pedro, you're zooming in here from, but I'll let you, Pedro, maybe you can go next and introduce yourself within the Fundos de Cabral world.
Thank you, Devin. Hi everyone, I'm Pedro, I'm from FDC. We are here in Minas Gerais state in Brazil. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you. I've been working with executive education for 19 years and since 2008 with custom programs. I've been part of FDC family for 3 years now. 18, that's when I came here. I work with custom programs here too, and I feel very happy to represent FDC and to be here with you. And about Devin's question, I think the main change, can I answer this now, Devin? About the main change?
Absolutely, Pedro, yeah, jump in.
Okay. I think, the main change in addition to new methodologies, technologies, of course, is to truly embracing people's problems, in their case, the customers especially. So I noticed that the meetings in March last year initially changed due to clients' insecurity with the new formats, with the online stuff. But over the time, we start to embrace insecurities, anguish from, somehow participate in personal matters. After all, we are talking with people in their homes. So this somehow made us more human in customers' relationships. So, and another important point was taking care of people, our people here at FDC who take care of the online operation, because the access of Zooms and Teams and everything was very tiring for those who directly taking care of operation and logistics. So it was important to understand that we were in people's house now. So it was just not just about work anymore. We think, in a way, we had to learn more about take care of people too. So I think that was the main thing that we learned. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Pedro. That's very helpful. We now go from Brazil to, and I guess in a Zoom world, you can't assume that somebody is zooming in from that place. But Markie Williams from MIT in Boston. Maybe if you want to go next.
Hi, I'm Markie Williams from MIT, Executive Education. I am set in the Boston area, Boston, Massachusetts. My role at Executive Education is a program manager. I work on all sorts of different types of programs, whether it's custom, digital, open enrollment, webinars. I've worked on all of them. I would say the biggest shift for me in the last 18 months has been bringing all of our programs digital and what that digital classroom really looks like. So a shift in my job has been thinking and being creative when it comes to the participants' virtual experience, and then really implementing it in that virtual setting and what limitations we might have compared to what we could do in person for our custom clients. Another shift that we've had is being a type of tech support for our custom clients when they come to us and have audio issues or video issues, and really trying to troubleshoot for them. I feel like I've become more computer tech savvy than I was before. I might have been classroom tech savvy, but now definitely computer tech savvy, and really brushing up on all the new technologies that we are bringing in to the classroom to use. And if it's Google Docs, or if it's Zoom, or if it's Microsoft Teams, really knowing the ins and outs of the technologies so that we can tell our faculty what limitations they have for putting the program on and getting their content out to the participants, and also telling the participants and introducing the participants to new technologies that they might not have worked with before. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Markie. That's great to have your insights in there, and looking forward to further insights in the panel. In another case of be careful if you work with a co-chair of the conference committee, I will say that I think Shalini, being one of the co-hosts, might have had something to do with Michelle, your presence here this morning, but I will turn it over, Michelle Grayson from Stanford, if you want to go next.
Yes, Shalini did convince me to come, but I'm really glad to be here. I'm so glad to be able to talk to other people. I've only been to UNICON once in person, and it was amazing. It really opened up my mind to how different and the same we all are. So as a program manager at the Graduate School of Business, we do different things. We're a bit more siloed in face-to-face programs. So I work mainly with logistics, and the program leads work with the faculty and the custom clients and the participants. So I did find out through UNICON that everyone does it a little bit different, and sometimes it's the same. So I found that interesting. I'd say I've been in executive education for 7 years, and at Stanford for 27 years. I definitely love executive education. That's my favorite part of working at Stanford. It's just so different and exciting. So I really appreciate my job, and I still love it after 7 years. I'd say the biggest challenge is with going online was the pace. At the beginning, it was very slow as we were trying to, deliver a quality product. We wanted to maintain our quality and our standards, and I think it took us a little while to get going. But once we got going, woo-ee mama, it went crazy, and it was a lot. So just the pace now of how quickly we get a client and we can launch a program is much different than our biggest constraint before was just being able to have a classroom. So we book custom clients a year or more sometimes just to ensure that they had a classroom. And now we can do it in 6 weeks. So it's just the pace. And then also, it's good that we can all be, participate from different places. So for me, the time is also, it can be sometimes 4:30 in the morning. And then we also have, like, for our Asian clients, we also do evening programs. So just in terms of staffing, it can be hard to kind of manage the time of programs. But I'm just glad that I like fast paced. So I'm glad that we have more clients.
Great. Thank you so much, Michelle. And you had a couple quotes there that I'm not sure I could pull off. The wooey mama. I'm not sure I could pull that one off in a natural course of giving feedback. But thank you so much for sharing that. So we now go across the Atlantic to Jehan and in Dublin, which obviously excited to have you on the panel as well. And so if you want to go next.
Super, thanks a million. And firstly, many thanks to you, Devin, and to Shalini for giving us the opportunity to be on this inaugural event. I'm very excited to see what else comes down the line. And thank you to all our participants today as well. So my name's Jehan Heenahan. I am from UCD Smurfit here in surprisingly sunny Dublin. It's actually lovely here. So apologies for the glare coming in. I've been working at Smurfit for just over 6 years now. And even though I've worked with the open enrollment programs, my main area of focus has been the customized. So I agree with a lot of the things that the colleagues on the panel have said, very, very similar experiences in what has changed. And I think for me personally, it would be diving headfirst into the hybrid model. We are now back on campus, so we have people in person. And it's now managing our customized clients who say, right, okay, we want to do everything online, or we want to have everything in person. And then we do get the odd client saying, we want the hybrid model. We want to be able to have everybody there, and just managing the technology around it, managing the expectations, because as we all know, the in-person experience is very, very different to the online experience, and getting that message across to the client and getting that message across to the participants, that's kind of been a little bit of a challenge at the beginning, but now that people are getting more used to it, I think that expectation of that hybrid model it's getting a little bit more bedded down. That's it from my side there, Devin.
Great, thank you, Jehan. And I'll probably stop sharing full screen just so now that we've gone through the panelists, so we can at least see people in more kind of full screen video. An open question to the panel, and again, maybe we can do this as sort of a round robin panel question is, as you think about your workflow, shifting from, as you mentioned, Michelle, sort of what March of 2020 looked like, though many of us don't want to think about that, to back to those days. But how has your workflow sort of shifted from during the lockdown, when it might be gone all virtual to now hybrid to back in person? Open round robin question for the panel. How has your workflow shifted as you think about the last year to 18 months within the program management capacity? Grace, maybe if you want to, we can go around either in the same order or just get started. But Grace, you want to kick us off?
Sure. I would say first, my workflow, I find out what the design, we have a blended model currently where many of our clients that we're supporting are anywhere between an expert-led, so they take a course that there's a facilitator on our side that they sign up for these courses, and then they also connect with a live virtual session, and then on top of that there's also an in-person. So as I mentioned before, I just recently did 2 in-person programs, but that was also a blended model. So we had some virtually tapping into the space. So making sure that we're connecting with our faculty frequently, making sure the content. So that workflow has shifted completely because you're having to, I'm going to make sure that all participants are involved, whether they are virtual or they're there in person. Clients, they come to us looking for our expertise and working with us and making sure that we have their best interest at heart. Just like Pedro mentioned, we become more people oriented and making sure that we are listening accurately. So my workflow is constantly shifting depending upon the design of the program, and making sure I'm thinking of the client first, then going to the faculty needs, and then making sure I'm executing every aspect of the design of the program.
Great. Grace, you mentioned Pedro. Pedro, as you think about your workflow, building on some of the changes that you mentioned, can you give us a little bit of an insight of how your workflow has shifted or where the workflow currently sits?
I think it can be a kind of word answer, but I think I realized that I had to change my life to be a better professional during the pandemic. So in November, I left São Paulo, the big city of São Paulo in Brazil, and I decided to travel around Bahia in the Brazilian coast. So after working as a nomad, I settled in the city of Salvador, where I have a better quality of life with more quality time for me. So I have to take care of myself to take care of my clients and my team. So I think the school was very successful in quickly adapting from face-to-face to virtual. This was not a great suffering, I may say, but what FDC did best was to allow people to be free to make important choices for their lives. So we can live anywhere we want, so we don't need to be close to the work anymore. So I think that was the main change. This is more important than changing processes. So I think to this HR initiative to see people happy to work was the most interesting change for me and for the people of FDC.
Great. Markie, what would you add to that in terms of how your workflow has shifted as you think about the last 18 months or so?
Well, I think when we went into lockdown, there were probably already conversations going on behind the scenes that were talking about how we were going to bring programs digital, if that was what it came to. So we might have had a step in the right direction, but I really felt like it was kind of a survival mode where we wanted to make sure we could get these programs up and running digitally as fast as possible. And I think it was within 2 weeks timeframe that we had our first program online, and we had custom clients coming to us in May, the beginning of May, and we had moved and shifted those online as well. The custom client programs are a little bit different with workflow because they're spread out, or they have been spread out. So it started as maybe 1 day a week for multiple weeks, or 1 day a month for multiple months. So you were working on these custom engagements for longer than what would be a week in person. So that was a little bit more challenging. And now we seem to be running them 2 days a week, maybe for 2 or 3 hours. We're really cautious about Zoom fatigue for our clients and our staff. So that was also something that we've been looking at. We really just try to innovate, and every single time we look at the program that we just run and we think, how can we make that better? What can we do differently for our client next time, and how can we innovate? And at the moment right now, we don't have a hybrid program. We had our first custom in person last week, and they were US based. It seems that we don't have as many custom clients coming to us right now that are international because of the visas and things like that, and we can't get those clients here because of COVID. So there's definitely been a big shift with how the programs have been running, and I think we're going to have more custom clients coming to us and more in-program programs coming too.
Great. Michelle, what would you add to that or support to that in terms of how your workflow has shifted?
Yeah, I think I alluded to that a bit in my first comments, but we have an online component. We had it before the pandemic, that we have a lead program. and they're doing great, and they were doing great before. They're doing even better now. So I think our staffing model, basically, we had an online team. And when this happened, we needed to consult with them quite a bit because we also have a face-to-face team, and I'm on the face-to-face team. So I had no idea how to run an online program, and I think many of us did not. And I had hired 3 new people in January, and those staff we all had to learn how to do basically a whole new job. We didn't know what we were doing. And I think at this point, I feel like we are experts in what we're doing, but it's a completely different job than what those 3 people that I hired in January are doing. And I'm just impressed with how quickly we were able to do that. And all of us have had to do that. But it definitely, what we're doing as program managers is different online. And as we move back to doing some face-to-face, and it's slow, but we're doing it, I think that's going to be a challenge too. Because I think the people that I had hired, and even me, I don't even remember some of the names of the rooms that I'm like, wait, what is that room called again? I can't remember because it's been so long. So I think that shift of going back and forth from face-to-face to online is going to be a bit of a challenge too.
Great. I think many of us have found that I don't remember the name of that breakout room, or I don't remember how I used to do that pre-pandemic. So it's a great point, Michelle. Jehan, what's from a workflow standpoint, what's shifted in your world that's the biggest sort of highlight that you'd agree with or add to the discussion?
Yeah, I will echo a lot of what our co-panelists have said. And just for me, I think at the very beginning of lockdown, we had a lot of conversations with clients. There was, I think Pedro alluded to this, a lot of anxiety and insecurities about how this was going to work in the online space. And I think because we were dealing with our, L&D teams or maybe directors or whatever it is, it was a reflection on them as well, how this online program went. So there was an added layer of anxiety that we had to kind of, help appease. So a lot of time was spent with the client. I think that was one thing that I really reflected on. The other thing is, as well as like some of the panelists have said, is like you had to pick up a lot of new skills very, very quickly, like overnight. And I think I might have said it in an email. It's just like we suddenly had to develop these superpowers. It's like we had to know Zoom inside and out. And we had to learn, okay, so we did a lot of asynchronous stuff as well. So we had to learn how to support our faculty and how to do video PowerPoints. And, then when we did the recordings, how to edit them and then send them back again. So all of these things, not only did we have to learn, we had to turn them around really, really quickly. So there was a lot of pressure and a lot of hours that went in during lockdown. Now that we're back now, like, for us in Smurfit Executive Development with the hybrid model, there's a different kind of myriad of logistics that we're dealing with. So yes, all of the online stuff, doing regular tech checks and all of this stuff, but the technology that's needed in the room, and does it work, and can everybody connect to it? And then also we have to consider in the hybrid model, if they're doing group work, how do you manage breakout rooms, like, in the virtual space and in the physical space? And then also if you have in-class materials, do these get posted out? And if they don't arrive in time, do we have plan B to send out like a digital copy? So all of those little additional things you have to consider in the hybrid space. So lockdown was actually, I think, probably a little bit more clear cut because everybody was online and everybody was having the same needs and same requirements. In the hybrid model, it's managing the 2 requirements at the same time.
Great. Yeah, great. Executive education superpowers. That could be in and of itself an interesting discussion as well, but I'm glad that was what included. A quick reminder, if you have questions you'd like to raise to the panel, as Shalini mentioned, you can put it in the text. We actually did get one from David Deegan at Cranfield, which I'll read out here, which is, and then this is an open question to whoever wants to take it on the panel, which is, what are clients expecting from you now, maybe either in processes or quality standards, that you think is probably going to be the new normal, right? And actually that links to one of my next question of sort of the new normal, but from the panel, I'll just open David's question to the panel in terms of what are clients expecting from you now that maybe is different, or you think is going to be the new normal of their expectations moving forward?
I'll take this one, Devin. I actually want to say hello to David, who is my ULA classmate. So thanks for being here, David, and thanks for the question. I think in terms of our clients, I think they're looking for flexibility. They're looking for options because, in terms of our clients, as with all of yours, they're not all based in the same place. They're global, different time zones. So they want to be able to give the opportunity for their employees to engage in professional development programs, no matter where they are in the world. So I think that flexibility of delivery is something that our clients are going to come to expect.
Other panelists, what would you add to that in terms of shifting client expectations to become the new normal?
I think I mentioned that too, that the time zone thing. And also, like, we've tried to develop standardizations, and that is to ensure that we can deliver quality products. So with face-to-face, we have task aids, and we have a kind of a standard program that we try to deliver. And faculty, we're able to make sure that the faculty can fit exec ed into their other tasks as well that they're doing with the MBA students. So definitely hard to figure that out in the online world, because just like you said, Gian, that now our clients are expecting that we could fit in, and we can, like in some ways we can customize things more in the online world than we can in face-to-face, but to what extent can we do that to maintain the quality? So that's kind of a challenge that we're facing for sure.
Pedro, Grace, Markie, anything you want to add to that in terms of the shifting client expectations?
I think today there is more trust in relationships. So if I think my work in the past, as a manager, I don't follow as many classes as in the past. I always follow them from the back of the classroom. So I think today we managers, we are good in making the necessary links with the context of the organization, with professors and clients. So the process is less dependent on us. So I'm happy to hand over the classrooms with my eyes closed to the professors, and the client knows that. So I think our presence became not necessary in many times today in the classroom. It was different before. So we were there in the whole time to make sure that everything was okay. So I think my team works better in this way. We learn to really trust on people that work with us, and the client too. So less dependence on the manager. I think this is great.
Pedro, your comment on trust is an interesting one, because I think many of us, and a lot of us, as I see on the screen here, have moved to obviously fake backgrounds. But I know there's been part of the trust is also, I think a lot of us have a greater connection to people and the intimacy of their homes, right? Because we were all zooming into their homes. So we met their kids more than we probably ever did. We met their pets, certainly. I know more about Grace's dogs than I probably would have had I not had this kind of Zoom back and forth with her. But so the comment on trust is an interesting one, because we've also had windows into people's worlds that we might not have had, in a pre-pandemic world. Markie and Grace, I'd go to you with maybe the next question is, what is one thing that you think is gone and is not coming back? And we're actually really happy about that. As you think about, go back to February of 2020, the world we lived in, what's one thing that you think is gone and is not coming back? And what's one thing that you think has been a part of the last 18 months that is absolutely going to stick around, and it's definitely for the better? Markie, you want to kick us off on that? And then Grace, maybe you can jump in as well.
So feel like we are going to try to go more green in our classrooms when we go back into the custom setting and use the new course site that we have and the digital side of things and bring that into the classroom for uploading our documents and handouts and things like that. I feel like being more green is more sustainable at this point. I do feel like custom programs might not transfer as well online. So I do feel like the custom clients are going to be coming back into person and would like to have that version of the program be on campus, go on the campus tours, be able to network with each other and do the work that is asked of them in person in the classroom. And we might have less custom work or deliveries online. I do feel like because of that flexibility aspect, we will still hold some custom clients online, but like I was saying before, they are shorter hours. They are days that maybe are spread out along the months or weeks. So being at campus and together for a week, I feel like changes the dynamic from what it is online and only having a couple of hours or days together. And I also think back to the question that you were talking about before this last one, is the content. I mean, the clients that come to us, they really want to have that content transfer digitally. And how does that happen, right? There are only so many limitations that we can bring in and have on Zoom. So in classroom, I feel like you get more out of it. You can do more interactive things with the participants.
Great. Grace, what would you add to that in terms of the one thing that is not coming back and the one thing that is probably here to stay?
My answer is actually very similar to Markie. We have an abundance of custom clients that have gone from the in-person programs. They did not have a virtual aspect, more of a hybrid model like everyone has mentioned. Just communicating with them and building that relationship over the last 18 months. It looks like we are going to continue to adapt to this hybrid model, that we are not going to just completely shift from a virtual designed program and go back completely strictly to an in-person. There will be some type of hybrid component to it, only from the convenience factor of having a multitude of participants coming from all walks of the US or international. So that is going to definitely be something that we will be keeping. I don't think we'll just go strictly back to in-person and that will be it. Also, we have added a Canvas course to many of our custom programs that house all the materials from that program. They can reflect on all the materials from the beginning, from the pre-work, some of the virtual classrooms. We record the sessions, so they can go back, and many have access to that to reflect on it for anywhere between a year to a year and a half. So being able to have access to that Canvas course has been predominantly successful throughout the last 18 months. I still get success stories and emails from those participants and clients really liking that. So that doesn't seem like that's going to go away. And that has actually helped printing materials in the classroom. We haven't really needed to do that because all they go into the Canvas course, they have everything that they need. They now need to actually bring in their laptops, but that's okay. We make sure that they have outlets and various logistical items in the classroom. But it's been very, very helpful from a client relations management standpoint to be able to adapt to that. As far as program management is concerned for the materials and faculty need.
Great, Grayson. I think you hit on the sort of Megan Carter from IMI, or the Irish Management Institute's question about sort of have clients embraced the green no printing methods, and anyone on the panel want to build on sort of that as you think about, do you think that will come back as we go back to face-to-face programs, or people have gotten so accustomed to digitally engaging with materials, whether on iPads, computers, in different ways, that you don't think that's going to come back, even when we go back to sort of more in-person or hybrid programs? Anyone on the panel want to take sort of the green materials question, building on, I know what Grace you were talking about as well?
I can talk about that a bit. Prior to all of this, we went green. So we were giving water bottles, like reusable water bottles, in the classroom, which was great, and they were able to fill that up rather than the individual water. And we realized we had a mountain of, at one point we had like a visual of this giant mountain of water bottles that we were hoping to save. So our campus at the Graduate School of Business is a green platinum certified building. So we felt like we needed to do that. And I think before I started, I heard from the old timers that we used to give binders with all the material. And it was like every Friday, everyone would gather in the workroom and print like giant binders. So we have gotten away from that, and we had gotten away from that before the pandemic. And we really didn't have too many people complaining about that. And every once in a while, someone would bring their own, pile of materials that they printed, but most people were fine with everything being online. We also do only online books, and we did that prior to.
We've really gotten into that online book thing, and to be able to send our participants who are all over the world books would be really challenging. So the digital book, I think, is definitely coming into play here, and it's a lot easier for participants to be able to read on their computer, tablet, phone. We're so mobile. We're getting back into going to work and having those long T rides or train rides. So I definitely think that's helping. I also think that for our participants, we made a lot of worksheets digital, so they could actually use them. They weren't just PDFs where they could print them out. They could actually use them in the class, and we would drop them into Zoom, and we would put them on our website and things like that for them. So I think going green, it's going to be kind of the future, and people are going to bring in their tablets and their computers. I mean, everyone probably has one now after COVID, and they're going to be using them. Not to say that we won't be in person writing on the boards and things like that too for exercises.
Great. We've got about 2 minutes left in this section, though obviously these are just the starter of conversations. My last question, and it sort of builds on Jody, Martin, your question around sort of how have you been able to manage your team's capacity and energy levels to support faculty and delegates and clients. Obviously we've all mentioned sort of different time zones, whether it's early in the morning, late at night. It'd be great. Maybe the last question that I would pose as we kind of wrap up this custom side of the panel, though obviously then we'll launch into small group sessions, is each one of you sharing, how have you been able to do that? Is there a tip or a tool that you've embraced on kind of keeping your own energy up or keeping morale up within the team as you think about the hours that we've now needed to engage the blending of work and life? What's one thing you've been able to do, or a tip or a tool that you've embraced that has helped that to be able to deliver on that proposition? We'll maybe go around. I'm going to go in reverse order that we went in when we kicked it off. So Jehan, if you want to kick us off on that question.
Thanks, Devin. I was hoping to steal answers off my co-panelists. Okay, I'll go first. So I think when we first started off at lockdown, program managers were online with our faculty the entire time. And we had a slightly different model in that I know a lot of the colleagues on the call today, they reduced the numbers of hours for the classes and everything, but we did a 9 to 5, which was probably very challenging for everybody, but it's strange that we kind of got used to it. What we did though, is that we built in breaks in between to make sure that the participants got a break, the faculty got a break, and definitely the program manager got a break. But we found that the program managers were not really getting a break because they were constantly having to monitor when people got thrown off a call or they're having tech issues, so they didn't really get that time to take a step away. So in the process of the last 18 months as program managers, we pretty much trained our faculty to take over. And more than that, our participants, having to use Zoom for their own jobs, they kind of got used to it as well. So a lot of the kind of early road bumps, if we can call them that, they kind of got ironed out towards the end, because faculty were quite happy to set up their own Zoom links and do their own breakout rooms. And then also the participants were fine with the technology. They knew when they had to turn off their VPN so their broadband didn't get reduced. And, there's little things like that. So I think how we managed it was to actually empower people, and get some of the energy back for ourselves.
I'm going to try to channel my inner program manager, which, as Grace knows, is always concerning when I try to do that, and try to keep us on time. But I'm wondering if there's any last one or two people on the panel who want to talk about, kind of building on Jehan, your excellent comments on that energy and that engagement. Curious, anybody want to add any last tips or tools before we move on to sort of the small group breakout activity?
Devin, I would like to. I think it's important when you work in teams, especially for custom programs. I work with another program manager, and we like to stagger our days if we're doing multiple days in a row. And so I will run the first day, and then my colleague will run the second day, and we'll kind of switch off, which gives us a little bit of a break. And even though we're on screen, it doesn't feel like we are running the program the whole time. We also take shifts for our breaks. So maybe someone will stay on for the first break and kind of monitor the classroom, and then one of the program managers will step away, and then when they come back, we'll kind of go in a shift. And we also have the faculty telling the participants to get up, to move, to stretch. We'll have a stretch break. They'll do little yoga moves, dance around kind of thing, get them a little energized, especially after lunch. We see, that little decline sometimes. So that's always really helpful. The faculty are definitely stepping up and trying to get the participants to be more energetic.
That is a great transition, Markie, from a change of energy. And obviously, we all know we want to shift the focus a little bit. So what we're going to do now is, and thank you very much to the custom panel for your excellent thoughts in sort of sharing and shaping our discussion. What we're going to do now is we are going to pivot to being able to take this into a sort of small group breakouts. And so really wanted you in groups of, and Taryn is going to break you up into groups of 4 or 5. And so you can take a few minutes. We're going to give you, a nice amount of time, hopefully, though I'm sure it'll fly by, about 25 minutes to meet in smaller groups to share some of your thoughts at this point, what's on your mind, some of the challenges, the opportunities. Megan, I know you had a great one in the chat right before we left around pushback from participants on digital materials. So obviously building on challenges. Any of these 3 questions could be a great way to sort of help inform, but I have a feeling if as this group, there will not be a shortage of airtime and conversations that we'll need to probably cut off as we pivot. So Taryn, I think you're probably going to assign everybody to a small group break. We're going to do that for about 25 minutes. Then we're going to take a 10-minute break, as you said, Markie, to refresh energy, get a cup of coffee, get something stronger, whatever you want to do, move around a little bit, and then we'll come back and we'll shift the conversation from custom into open. But Taryn, if you want to maybe assign group breakouts, and then we can take it to that stage.
Okay, opening the breakouts now. So thank you again for everyone who came back after break, because we definitely lose people. As Devin has reminded me, this is the open enrollment panel. My name is Shalini Bhatia. I work at Stanford, and I'm the Director of Program and Business Development. I've been at Stanford now for 10 years in executive education and have ran both open and custom programs. I'm really excited to be with my fellow panelists today, focusing on open enrollment since we just focused on custom. And as we go through introductions, we're going to have them introduce themselves and really just get started with the first question, which is, what has been the biggest thing that has changed from an open enrollment program operations and logistics perspective? So I'm going to start with Devin.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. It was a great discussion in the breakout rooms, I would say, and I was quite happy to see that we all share, the same kind of issues in terms of operations. So I don't feel alone anymore. Anyway, so I'm Ludivine de Neuville. I'm working at INSEAD. I'm based in Europe, in the European campus in Fontainebleau. I am in charge of the operations and of a team of program managers, and we work on both custom and open programs. And I've been in Executive for like 11 years now. The biggest change, well, I'm not going to be super original, but it's like the transition to virtual, especially with Open's program. We have only residential programs at INSEAD, and at the beginning we went for virtual, so learn how to, replicate the programs from residential to virtual. So we tried to make sure to give the exact same services and quality to our participants, and we have to learn from scratch. So it's the first thing. Second thing is now it's OEPs or more like CSPs, I would say. We have a lot of different kind of formats, so hybrid programs, so with residentials or live virtual modules and sync training, and we do have what we call blended programs with residential modules and live virtual modules. So it's more complicated than it used to be for open programs at INSEAD. And the last one, and it's something we discussed at the end of the custom panel, but it's how to get the team motivated, that they are totally changed the way they're working. The program coordinators, they love interaction with people being on site, and so we had to keep them motivated. It was not super easy at the beginning, yes, because they were quite exciting to learn new things. But then, with the Zoom fatigue and all the some complicated things in terms of workflow, it was not that easy. So I would say the three big things for us since a year and a half.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Moving right along to Michelle at MIT in Boston.
Hello. So I'm Michelle Lally. I've been a program manager with MIT Sloan Executive Education for 2 years. And I think, again, maybe not the most original answer, but I do think the biggest change has been that shift from being in the classroom to being in a virtual classroom. The shift to running virtually changed the way we thought about creating an engaging program experience. And I'll be honest, pre-pandemic, I don't know that I would have believed running a program online could generate the same level of engagement as being on campus. Thinking back to the beginning of lockdown, we did a lot of work to make sure that these programs translated in this new format. And we thought a lot about different ways we could foster participant collaboration and avoid Zoom burnout. And I think through doing that, the way we thought about logistics changed. Logistics were once BEOs, making sure you had space reserved. What did you need in the classroom? What was going on the desks? And now it's more scheduling the Zoom meeting, creating the classroom, and making sure your faculty are feeling comfortable presenting their content in Zoom, knowing when you're going to have breakouts, when to launch a poll, what other tools you might be using. So I think it took on a new meaning for me. So I think that would be the biggest change.
Excellent. And then going on to the other side to Julia in Moscow.
Hello, everyone again. I'm Julia. I'm based in Moscow at the Skolkovo campus. And I've been in learning and development for almost 20 years. And but I've always been at in-house L&D. I've been working in professional services, and I came to Skolkovo from a Big Four company. I've been with our business school for 5 years. And when the COVID crisis started, I left the school to start my own project. And then when I came back, I took on the role of the Open Enrollment Programs Director. So when I came back to school, I found myself in a new place because the building inside was renovated. We didn't have our own tables, chairs, so no nothing private anymore. The big open space for everyone. The classrooms were renovated as well. They became high-tech classrooms. We also have a special professional video studio. It's called Classroom. So I found myself in a new environment with new people and the new skills that everyone had to acquire very quickly. And the biggest change in our programs is now that we mostly live in a hybrid format, which means 4 parts for us, since most of our professors cannot travel to Russia these days. So normally we have a foreign professor in Zoom, our Russian local professor in the classroom at the same time, participants in the classroom, since we're already back to normal, and participants in Zoom. So our classroom looks like, I call it mission control center, because in the back of the classroom, there is a huge IT desk and laptops and 1 or 2 IT specialists. Then we have 3 professional cameras with camera people, and and participants just inside all that equipment. And of course, for my team, it's a big challenge because now, as everyone already shared, we need to acquire new IT skills. We have to, although we have IT people with us, but still we also have to know everything. Also, since we have programs on campus, we always have some rules concerning the anti-COVID restrictions, because our participants have to take these tests. They don't know how to do it properly, so our program managers, they train them how to do it. And then the IT people, they have a special language. So my colleagues, they have to know this special language as well in order that our colleagues understand as well. So many things have changed dramatically.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I loved your analogy of mission control. It definitely does sound like that for sure. You all touched upon about how workflow shifted. Is there anything else that you wanted to share on how, given that it's so much more complicated, as Devin mentioned, what has changed from a workflow standpoint that you haven't shared to date so far from an open enrollment standpoint that you would like to share with the participants in this UNICON shift?
I think I can start. I would say that open programs were quite, I'm not going to say easy, but easy to plan and to organize because they were fixed, in the year. And now we work with a shortened deadline because obviously, there's all the restrictions also for the residential programs. So, dates can change sometimes. And with virtual program, we also have, last minute enrollment as well. So coordinators, they work more in last minute, they have last minute things to do. So it's more like being flexible and, they have to do things quicker than it was. I would say that. And also talking about program coordinators, and we had the discussion in the breakout rooms, and it was quite interesting, is that you have to be super focused during the Zoom session because basically you are the one, doing everything. So for the faculty, so you have to be super concentrated. So it's quite exhausting. So at the end of the day, it's not the same thing as a residential program. So we have to take this into account as well. Yeah, I would say that it's definitely more time consuming than it was the open program in terms of workload.
Great. Thank you so much, Devin. Julia, Michelle?
I can jump in. So I would say that the way the workflow has changed from beginning of lockdown to now, when we first shifted to running our programs on Zoom, I think we were rapidly working to get them on Zoom, and there was a lot of work going on behind the scene. We had to change processes. We had to create new slide decks to get our morning announcements out or to run our certificate ceremonies. At the same time, there were some faculty, I think, that were more ready to step into presenting on Zoom. And so we thought really carefully about which open enrollment programs would run on Zoom. And so at first it was a little bit less programs running on Zoom. But as we began to get more comfortable with it, and as we found new ways of working and new ways of engaging our participants, we really picked up speed. So we're offering more our open enrollments more frequently, and we're seeing that we are getting more participants enrolled. And similar to what Ludovine said, we are seeing enrollment trends coming in later. So more participants are joining closer to the deadline. So I think some of that management has changed with some of the changes in behavior of our participants. I also think that we've gotten really good at putting interactive elements into these programs. I think at the beginning we were using Google Docs to share collaboration or handouts in the slide. And now we've expanded into other tools such as we've used Miro on programs for virtual whiteboarding. And I know we've had some programs use online interactive games for the program, or Mentimeter. So we've built a lot more interactive elements and learned more about interactive elements we can add to the workflow.
Excellent. Julia?
Yes, here in Russia, participants are eager to come back to offline programs. So they're some way pressing on us. And it's not restricted, so we make offline programs, but still some companies, they don't allow their employees to attend in offline format. Therefore, we have this complicated hybrid format. And in this way, the role of a program manager it became more interesting, I should say, because we always, our program managers, they are always like a program designers together with the faculty. And now we have to explain our faculty members that they have to prepare exercises and everything, both for the offline participants and at the same time for the online participants, because they will be working at the same time. And of course, it's extra pressure on our faculty members, and they have more tasks to do. But this task is challenging but interesting to them. And for example, if we have a group discussion in the classroom, of course, participants in the Zoom, they're not very interested in being in this discussion. They will turn off the cameras and we know what will happen next. Therefore, we always ask our professors to create some games, to use just what Michelle said, Menti, Miro, Kahoot, and all the things to make this process more interactive. And also when the professor being in the classroom, we also teach our professors that they have to pay attention both to those who are in the classroom physically and to those who are in Zoom, because the speakers, they tend to forget about them. Therefore, we put a huge screen with the Zoom faces in front of them so that they don't forget that we have virtual participants as well. So, and I think that these things, they will rest with us for a long time. And we have a lot of new exercises, games that were created online, especially for this format. And I think that it just makes the program more interesting, richer, and they have a future.
Excellent. I find it very interesting that all three of you have introduced this hybrid where people are now face-to-face as well as online, and the complexity of that. And as we think about the future, that's definitely a possibility. So the next question I would love to ask you is, what is one thing that you hope won't come back from pre-pandemic? And what do you think is here to stay as we go into the future?
I can jump in. So I think one thing I hope won't come back is only having these programs as an option for in person. Personally, I've really enjoyed being able to run programs on Zoom. I, of course, love the the feel of a program being in person and being able to meet the faculty face-to-face and engage with the participants. But I think that we've opened a lot of doors by having the programs virtual. There are participants who may be eager to get back to campus, but I also think we'll find people who might be more selective in what they're leaving home for. And I think giving them this opportunity to get the executive education experience from the comfort of their home, it'll give us a wider audience. And I think that we've all picked up some really valuable skills through running these programs remotely, and I'd like to continue using those and building on those. One thing that I think is here to stay is also, and I may have hinted at this in my last response, but the use of those collaborative tools. I'm not sure that there would be a place for them in person. I know that a big part of being in person is interacting, moving around the classroom, getting that engagement and keeping the energy up. But I'd like to see if we continue to run our programs, our open enrollment programs virtually in addition to in person. I'd like to see us expand in some of those tools and see how we can get even more collaborative and bring more of that in-person feel to being behind the Zoom screen. So that's my take on that.
Excellent. Julia, Ludwine?
Yeah, I would, I totally agree with Michelle, and I would add maybe what we keep is like the digital mind. So we already start our digitalization on the way we work and the tools we use. And you know, even like when Julia said the rooms are now super equipped and everything is working super well. And it's also the mindset that changed. So we really try to find new way of working, new tools. It makes things easier, quicker. So I think it will stay and it will be better and better. I don't think about something I won't come back after, you know, the pandemic. So I don't know, but I guess it's now, yeah, we have new offers and it's going to be very interesting to see hybrid programs and all kind of new, you know, formats. So it's going to be quite exciting. So looking forward to it.
Excellent. Julia?
Oh, when I think about the things that won't come back, I think that's we already discussed it, the amount of paper, the amount of printing that we used to have before, because we were kind of old school in that way. And our participants were very spoiled because they always waited for huge binders with a lot of printing materials. They took their pens to write down their notes. And after this pandemic, they already used to bring their own laptops with them, and smart tablets, and they don't complain anymore. So they became more digital, and which is really good. And the thing that will stay with us forever, I hope, this is the hybrid format, because you know Russia is huge, and to fly from Moscow to the Far East, it takes, I don't know, 10 or 11 hours. And of course, for some people to attend a 3-day program, to take a one-day flight, and then you know, it's just a big travel, and 1 week just because of 3 program days. And thanks to this hybrid format or online or Zoom, of course, more people have access to this business school education.
Awesome. I'm putting in a question that we didn't talk about, but based on what you've been sharing, one key element of open enrollment is networking, and why participants come to our open enrollment program. It's to network with others from different organizations and learn from each other. Beyond the classroom, as we went into this virtual format, what are some tools that you've put in place to enhance networking in this new virtual format, or even a hybrid format when people are offline and face-to-face?
It's actually a tricky point, I think, the networking when it's live virtual or hybrid. We really tried at the beginning of the lockdown to implement, new things, networking social events, or virtual social events. But it's what we were seeing also in the breakout room, that's not working very well because participants are just tired after the, a long session of Zoom. So I guess I would be happy to hear from the others to see what they are doing, because it's something complicated, to be honest.
So I can hop in as well. I think we haven't really found a tool that works for us yet, but we have found ways of using the tools in Zoom. So one of the things we've tried is one of the programs I'm on will do networking breaks, and we'll have the choose your own breakout feature, and the breakout rooms will be titled different topics related to either your MIT experience, what you've learned in this course, or taking this course back to the office, like how would you apply this? And depending on the class, that can be successful. Some people really like to jump in those rooms and they like to get conversation going with their peers. And other times people want to turn their camera off and walk away from the screen. So it's kind of a toss up. But what I have seen work really well, I'm thinking to a program I was on just the other week, is we started our days with a learning synthesis breakout where they would get together and they would talk about what they did the day before getting into more of their heavy work breakouts later in the day. And participants were filling up the chat with comments on how much they appreciated the opportunity to just debrief with the other participants before getting into the meat of the program, the meat of the conversation. They felt like they had better rapport with each other after having that opportunity to just talk before trying to work as a group. So those are a few things that we've offered or that we've seen work within Zoom, but no tool yet.
Excellent. Thank you, Michelle. Julia?
We also have no special tools for that yet, but I already shared in our small breakout room that what we do when we have online programs, so we make special evening events. We call them, in Russian, there is a word kvartirnik. It means home party, but in apartment party in an apartment. And so we invite one of the faculty members, for example, a program academic director. Then we invite the special guests, and we, like guest speaker, and we invite all our participants to attend virtually. And at these events, people turn on their cameras while during the program they turn it off. But when it's like just a networking event, they are much more engaged. And for example, we plan them for one hour and a half, but I just think that sometimes they take even longer time until late in the evening, because even the professor leaves, but the participants, they just keep on networking because they're in different cities, sometimes in different countries. And it's very interesting for them. And but still, they say that one day they will come to Skolkovo and meet in an offline format.
That's excellent. And you have a beautiful campus, so hopefully we'll be able to get together and share with each other. We would love to open it up to the participants. Please take yourself on mute, and would love to hear how you all are dealing with this challenge of networking in a virtual or hybrid manner. So does anyone want to share from your perspective? Because I think this is a really hot topic and we could really learn from each other before we go into small breakout rooms. So not to put anyone on the spot, but would anyone like to put in chat or take yourself off of mute to hear a different perspective?
Shalini, I'll chime in if it's okay.
Yeah.
I think when we first started and we weren't quite sure, we definitely knew that we heard from participants face-to-face that one of the most important components of the program was networking. So we tried to build in some things, and we did like a virtual, kind of a virtual classroom where they could have an avatar, and we tried, I think we used to have exercise. Actually, we have morning exercise that they can do, like a boot camp. And we tried to do that online and tried some different things at the beginning, and we found the best thing was just making sure that that each class was not just lecture, but also just opportunities for them to go into breakouts, much like we're doing here. I know I really enjoyed my breakout that we had here. And I think the participants have said that too. When they get a chance to talk among themselves and about their business as it applies to what the session is, I feel like that's the most important component of online.
Thanks, Michelle. Really important lessons there too. Does anyone else want to share on this topic? It's a really meaty one.
I'll jump in.
Thank you, Janice.
We have to sort of reinforce the faculty interaction with participants. Quite a few programs, we have offered an optional Q&A at the end of the day. So obviously the faculty have to be willing to do it. But a lot of folks are missing that casual, not only with us, but more importantly with the faculty during breaks, during lunch, that kind of thing. So that's been pretty successful. I mean, people always appreciate doing that. It allows them some direct time with the faculty to just have an open discussion. So it's been good.
Excellent. Would love to hear from one more person before we move on to the next question. I'm happy to cold call. Anyone? All right, I'll move on to the next question. Julia from Ohio State has a question, and it is, how do you increase open enrollment numbers other than online website, LinkedIn, or other social media channels? So how do you look at it from a marketing standpoint, or what are ways that you found from a virtual standpoint that has worked in this new environment? Opening up to Julia, Levine, Michelle, if you have any thoughts.
Well, I know that in the question, other than online, website, LinkedIn, and other social media was explicitly stated. I'm not sure I can speak to other than, but I do know for some of the programs that I've been on, we created prize certificates for, it was a negotiations program. So it was for the best person at creating subjective value or fostering value or claiming value. So at the end of the negotiations, we had analyzed the results, and then the best in the class got these certificates, and we sent them to our participants, and we encouraged them to share them on their LinkedIn and let them know that this was through an executive education course. And I think that helped get some of the word out. I also know that we, when requesting feedback, also request feedback on our public site about specific courses. And I think that that's something that helps drive interest in specific courses based on what other participants are saying. Another thing I've seen, thinking again back to a course I was on last week, is word of mouth. We saw a lot of participants who had such a great experience in that course that they went back to their teams and were sharing their learnings. And in the next iteration of that course, we had 3 or 4 people from the same company, from the same team. And so I think those are some of the ways I've seen us been able to drive enrollments. Although I don't know if that's the marketing standpoint on it.
Sure. No, thank you. From your perspective, given that you see the participants as well. Julia or Ludwig, do you have anything to add?
Well, to be honest with you, yes, I think we do have a fantastic marketing teams working on that. So, I mean, they have their own, way of doing things. Rather than that, I don't think. I mean, we do have what we call our global certificate in management. It's certificate that participants receive after the completion of several open programs. So it helps a lot, but it's also a marketing things. Rather than that, I don't have other stuff to share.
Okay, no problem. Julia?
At Skolkovo, we always have a huge marketing campaign before we launch a program, and of course we use all kinds of these social medias. But we used to have what we called info sessions. It was like an evening, a meeting with someone from the program faculty and an interesting guest speaker. And we invited guests to our potential clients to our campus, and they spent they had an interesting discussion with the program professor. Then when we went online, we thought what we will do, how we can do it. And of course, the first idea was to do this, I would call them webinars. The same content, we invite someone from the faculty, then a guest speaker. We talk about the program, and we have an interesting discussion together with our participants. And if we have during the offline event, we had maybe 60 people in the classroom. Now we have 1,000 people sometimes. It depends on the topic. And of course, we understand that now we have much broader, sorry, I forgot the word, let's say coverage, yes.
Excellent.
So it's a positive thing about going online.
Yeah, the numbers are just much higher, it sounds like. And Janice, thank you for sharing from an MIT standpoint. It sounds like webinars also worked on your end as well, as you mentioned, as another avenue to hopefully increase enrollment. Anyone else would like to share what they have seen from their schools around this topic related to open enrollment?
Shalini, just building on that point that Janice mentioned, I know Cornell has launched sort of a series of free keynotes that sort of, highlights faculty, maybe non-traditional executive education faculty on key topics. And I mean, those have had thousands of enrollments. Many, I'm sure MIT has had the same kind of enrollment numbers, but those are nice ways to get people in the system. So as you think about it from a pipeline standpoint, starting earlier with thought leadership that faculty want to do anyways, highlighting a book they've got coming out, or just, having an interesting conversation. And then hopefully that leads to further open enrollment and custom marketing. So.
Excellent. Thank you, Devin. Anyone else want to share from your perspective? Okay, we have one more question left before we send you out to breakout rooms. And that is, as we look ahead, what is one word that you want to leave us with related to how you view open enrollment as we look into the future?
Work in program management or used to work in program management, this part of bringing people back to the room is actually much easier on Zoom, right? All you do is you just kill the breakouts and everybody comes back, as opposed to the, okay, guys, come back to the classroom, ignore the coffee or, whatever else. So this part of program management might actually be easier. Well, maybe hopefully that mindset continues when we go back to in-person programs.
And everyone's coming back in 1 second. So
yes, perfect.
Awesome. We
have that efficiency in person. So
exactly. And we really appreciate those that have stuck around till the end for the wrap up. And I hope you all had great conversation in the breakouts. I think at this time we want to really just share our thoughts and also hear from all of you.
And part of this, Shalini mentioned, is this is the first of these UNICON Shift events. So really great to be incorporating feedback to take this forward. So Shalini, I don't know if you want to ask people or defer to your cold calling technique that you mentioned.
Yeah, and I would say from my perspective, a couple of key insights that I took away from the open panel. And I want to again thank Julia, Ludvine, and Michelle for sharing their thoughts on the open enrollment panel, is that the open enrollment world is complex now with so many different formats out there. And in virtual world, also people are enrolling later. And so this adds additional complexity from the role of a program coordinator or program management. And you have to learn new skills from an IT standpoint, as well as just having a shift on how many different processes you have to keep in place depending on the format. So those are some key insights that I took away from the open panel. Devin, do you want to share your insights from the custom panel before we open it up?
Yeah, so I echo thanks, and thanks to Grace, Pedro, Markie, Michelle, and Jehan for joining the panel, and hopefully it wasn't too painful of an experience for you. Appreciate you taking the time to do that. I guess the two insights I had, and one of you mentioned the kind of control room mindset, which I thought was really interesting, because whether you're looking at it like a broadcast or you really are the kind of the producer of a broadcast, right? The faculty is on camera, maybe you're on camera, participants are on camera. So I really liked who mentioned it as sort of I think it was on the open side, but also it applies to custom, that control room mindset, that you're really the one kind of in front of this camera as well as behind the camera, controlling the experience for the participant or the viewer. And then the other one that somebody mentioned was and I thought it was a really nice question about how do you keep your energy up and your team's energy up? Because certainly I think we've all had experiences of doing early morning calls, late night calls, and everywhere in between. And that is a very different mindset than it used to be, where maybe it was, I don't think our jobs were ever 9 to 5, particularly when you're on site, maybe, very, very different hours, but it's even more sort of expanded upon that when you think about doing a 6 a.m., Zoom session, and then maybe a 10 p.m. or an 11 p.m. or even worse, right? Grace, I think there's times maybe you've been up at 3 a.m. doing a Zoom session. So, that kind of energy flow of how do you do that? How do you structure your work to do that? I thought those were, from what I heard, two of the really interesting sort of analogies that were used. What else stood out to people? And obviously we didn't have the privilege also of being in those small group sessions. I know you had 2 of those, and hopefully that was a lot of the value for this event. But who wants to share maybe 1 or 2 things that they thought either were interesting or takeaways they're going to take from the event? Anybody, either on the panel or as participants? And this involves you going off of mute and either putting it in, but curious to who's brave enough to share in a group of.
I'll add something.
27. Great, thanks.
Sure. Just by listening to everyone and being in the small breakouts, it feels in a sense refreshing, because we're all going through very similar struggles, and we've all had to pivot in a way, whether it's open enrollment or client-based deliveries, and we're listening and we're following through with content being delivered, and we're working very closely with our partners. So it's refreshing to hear that we are all doing the same things, not only successfully, but struggling too. It's not always, you see the end result, clients do, they see that end result, but they don't see some of the complexity that happens before it. And so you work with a predominant and very close team, and it's just refreshing. I enjoyed everyone's conversations, and especially in the small groups.
Excellent. Jessica from Sauder Business School, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I was just going to add, I would echo those comments that Grace just made. It was really nice to hear that everyone's going through the same things. It can be kind of isolating to not be involved in conversations like this. So I think it really just drives home the importance of keeping these lines of communication open and kind of brainstorming what different people are doing in different geographies and different formats, as you guys just mentioned, with open enrollment and custom being hybrid and virtual and asynchronous and synchronous. And I think we all kind of get tunnel vision sometimes, and it's been a big shift in how we all do our business. So thanks very much for putting this on. It was great to meet some new people and see some familiar faces and start to share some best practices.
Thank you, Jessica. And just a plug, Sauder Business School, we all hope to be in Vancouver in 2022 for the Team Development Conference in person. So just wanted to have a shout out to Sauder for supporting us in that way.
Thank you. Yes, we have our fingers crossed that we can do that next year.
Excellent. Who else would like to share?
I'll go, Shalini, if that's okay.
Excellent. Thank you, Jehan.
I think the first thing that struck me is that in 18 months as an industry, we had to suddenly overnight, and this is the thing, I personally, I have a problem with the word pivot, because that means we're changing what we're doing. I prefer the word flex, because I think we have that energy and that strength inside us, and we just kind of expanded what we had inside of us anyway. And I think we had to do that really, really quickly. And I think having the different conversation, like hearing in the open plenary and also in the small groups, how quickly we did that and turn it around. And more than that, kept our businesses going and kept our clients happy and, well, kept our jobs, you know, let's be honest. And I think it's a testament to everybody involved in executive education that we've been able to do this. And we can actually have this open conversation about our journey from 18 months ago to now.
Great. I really like the flex as the sort of another one of the mindset words as opposed to pivot or adaptable, but flex is a really nice way to say it, John. Thank you. One or two more before we, pivot. And I know we absolutely want to use absolutely up until the 3 o'clock, hate to release you early. All of you know that that's a cardinal challenge, but any one or two more sort of thoughts before we wrap up?
We have Alex from Duke Fuqua who's going to share.
Yes, thank you, Shalini. Yeah, it was very interesting talking to the folks in my breakout session, kind of discussing ways in which we can replicate the face-to-face format to a more virtual format, and because we've run into what is the value add, and and we're finding that whether it's these coffee chats, yoga sessions, LinkedIn Live, that these things can really help us replicate that value that our clients came and experience in person. And there's a lot of nuances to it, and and a lot of this came up in the 2019 UNICON in Santa Clara, where they were discussing about moving towards online, and that really kind of jump-started us, and then COVID really jump-started us. And it's good to see, like everyone else has said, that we all share similar struggles, and that we've all had also similar accomplishments. And yes, I really enjoyed everyone and all their comments.
Thank you, Alex. I would like to ask Jacqueline if she would like to share.
Sure, thank you. First off, I want to say thank you so much for putting this conference on. It's been very insightful, and I've gotten a lot out of it. So I think for me, a key takeaway has been being comfortable, not being comfortable, especially over these last 18 months. And our new normal is just constantly changing, and we just have to be comfortable and embrace it. And we just have to be adaptable. And our role is not the same as it once was, and it never will be. So we just have to be, give ourselves grace in this role and position, and be flexible going forward. And I think it was great being able to hear from other program managers in our breakout rooms.
Excellent. I would like to hand it off to Annika.
Yes, thank you. I agree that I really enjoyed this conference, and I think we've been talking about also networking in our different programs, which I think this is also a great way of networking around what we do and how we can work and be creative and give each other, share ideas and best practice, and also become even more creative, because I think someone said that one thing during this pandemic has been actually leaving a comfort zone, standing into kind of a new universe, seeing new things that we can do. It seems quite impossible at first, but then we have accomplished so many new things, and there is still more possibilities. Still struggling, because I think that this disruption, it has not ended. It will just go on, actually. And I can also see on my colleagues that a lot of them have showed, new creative sides, new ways of thinking, trying really hard to work on new situations. And sadly enough, I have seen colleagues leave for different reasons, but I also had new colleagues with even other kinds of competencies that we did not have before, which we have now in the company and in the group, which is really great. And also a new way of developing and thinking in new ways, and also creating a new mindset. So, but it's been a hard struggle. And it's in a way, you know, I don't know if the word comforting, but very good to hear that we've been in this, I mean, we've all been in the same situation, but we really do want to deliver our good programs to our customers and participants with high quality. So it's been really great to meet you all and hear what's been said.
Of course. Thank you so much for sharing, Annika. That was really great insights. I'm going to hand it off to Christine Thompson, who's our off-board conference chair, to share her thoughts.
Thank you, and Devin and Shalini and all the panel members. It's been fantastic. I had to jump for a minute, had to come back in, so I apologize for missing the conversation. But one of the things that two things that I noted is that these coffee groups, so thank you, Taryn, the coffee chats have been just as helpful. And so it really does feel like we need to continue these kind of very small group conversations, because you can really get to details at that point. And that seems to be most helpful. It's what I heard from the group today as well. But other thing, I just wanted to note that I wrote like in big letters on a piece of paper, which I very rarely make notes anymore, but I wrote big letters. Accessibility has become so important in what we're offering, and is now something we can do with open enrollment and with technology. And I just took really good note of that, because I think exec ed has been somewhat confined and constrained by not only cost, but by access. And I feel like that's really just open, you know, the kimono's open, right? And I just think that that was something that sparked my memory a little bit more today, my energy. And so I just wanted to share that was something that's pretty exciting, and kind of think on that some more. So thank you for everything that you both did today.
Excellent. Well, we really appreciate everyone sharing. Are there any final insights before we do a little shameless plugging for upcoming conferences that will be happening? Well, again, thank you everyone for attending, the panelists for really sharing your insights, and all of you. I think there was a lot of rich discussion that took place. We have the Team Development Conference that's going to be hosted by Johns Hopkins University at the end of November, and it is in a virtual format. We have really great team pricing. So if you haven't signed up yet, please do so. And we really look forward to seeing many of you there. There is a topic on accessibility, actually, which is really a good tie into what Christine had mentioned. So we look forward to seeing you there. And then the Directors Conference, if you can share with your directors, is at Cornell. So Devin's going to be hosting that, hopefully in person, with some sessions actually virtually as well. So those are the upcoming UNICON conferences. And if you haven't done so yet, please feel free to join a coffee chat and email Taryn if you're interested. Those are really rich discussions that take place as well in small group formats to really continue the sharing and learning that you've experienced here as well. Devin, I'm just going to hand it off to you to share any final thoughts.
Great, and thanks so much, Shalini, for that. And I echo the thanks all around. Right, this certainly was an event that was as good as all of you made it. So thank you so much for your engagement. I know it was typically a longer session, and I'm sure there's nothing else going on and no other emails coming in and pinging you on Slack and Chime and everything else. But thanks for taking the time as we try to tell our participants, be focused on yourself for a little while, because that's part of how you're going to balance and stay, contributing to your team. So thank you for taking the time for yourself this morning and for this evening or wherever you are, and definitely echo that. We are hoping that this is the beginning of a kind of a new franchise for UNICON, for UNICON Shift. We would greatly appreciate your feedback following it in terms of what topics you might want us to focus on, or the goal might be to do one or two of these a year. I think we've heard the next one might be around business development and kind of the changing role of business development in today's world, or also that links to marketing, right? So one of you had a question about program management, program coordination role in marketing new programs. So that might be hopefully, watch this space as we think about that for maybe, May, June of this year of 22 to launch the next one of these. But definitely echo, and I mean, you all have played a critical role for your organizations to flex. Jehan, thank you for that sort of word to use and emphasize, to flex for your organization. You're all at the front lines of deliveries, whether it's in person, whether it's virtual, whether it's hybrid. You're definitely sort of a program management, program coordination has never been more important than it is now because of that sort of all the different ways that presents itself. So definitely take the time to invest in yourself, to keep that energy up. You play a critical role, and hopefully we will see you all down the road at a future UNICON event, whether that is a UNICON shift, whether that's a conference, whether that's a coffee talk. The list keeps going, and I think we make Taryn's job more dynamic by the minute, but in terms of her role. So thanks to all the behind the scenes, Taryn and Dan, for helping us market this. Really excited about taking this franchise forward, and thank you guys so much for your engagement. And we'll let you go with the rest of your day and give you 6 minutes back so you can use those as you see fit. So thank you, everybody.